Bobby Fink's up there in lane 3, making his own move, and the American is passing by everybody. Unbelievable. Fink is going to win gold for the United States in the first ever 800 free in the Olympics.
This is Interesting to See, your daily sports podcast, news, narratives, takes, and gambling. Bobby Fink wins the first ever Olympic gold medal awarded in the men's 800 free, which was a cool race. I think that swimming for me gets boring after about 1,000 meters. That's my personal take, and I'm not interested in your response. However, it's no disrespect to distance swimmers. The 50 free is electrifying, but that was really fun. Bobby Fink was in 4th place when he made the final turn, and he just roasted everybody. And I think that 800 free is going to be a race of great experimentation for swimming. It's going to be fun. Coming up on the show today, NBA draft is tonight. There are like 4 players being drafted and a bunch of other people that are going to do their very best when they get to the league. We are going to preview the San Francisco 49ers, and we're going to pose the question, are they frauds? Do they get too much credit for things they don't actually do? Zach Wilson does not play for the Jets yet. For real. Absolutely hysterical. And tennis players almost die at the Olympics. But we begin today with something a bit more sinister. In 2012, the NFL made the All-22 tape available to the public, opening up, as Mike Lombardi called it, Pandora's box. Fast forward 9 years, and some guy on Twitter replies to a Pittsburgh Steelers beat writer saying that the All-22 is unavailable for the 2021 season and may remain unavailable for the coming months. Ted Wynn at the NFL Athletic said he hopes that the NFL would fix Game Pass, but they made it worse somehow, suggesting we should boycott them. The question remains, what else is going on? Who's behind the All-22 not being available? More importantly, what will beat writers do if they can't post GIFs of Quentin Nelson? I looked into this for about 25 minutes this morning and found that it could go all the way to the top, maybe even to space. Today on NFL Beat Writer, what will we do without the All-22? Actually, I really don't care about that. I'm really just hoping I don't get sued for using that music. This is really just a reminder for you guys that if you subscribe to Game Pass from the NFL, it's about to renew on July 31st. And if you need the All-22, just remember that the NFL released that because while they didn't have the drug of choice every single day of the week, they can give you another drug, the All-22, that's not quite as good as the game, but it's just as good. It's sort of like how Twitter is addicting, and then they figured out if we just give away a bunch of verification check marks, people will become more addicted to it. And if you're complaining about the All-22 not being available, I know the guy that used to produce the All-22, and that guy essentially is working himself to death, so back off. Maybe we should bring that'll be a segment this week on NFL Beat Writer. All right, that'll be good. We're going to move to some NFL news now. The New York Jets. I used to like Pro Football Talk back when it was fun, and Barstool Big Cat, Dan Katz, the guy from Pardon My Take, said something on Pro Football Talk Live one time. Dysfunctional teams do dysfunctional things. You're like, how could the Lions or Washington or the Jets do this? And you're like, well, we're thinking like a functional person. They're not, so they don't. Zach Wilson, the second overall pick and widely considered the second best quarterback prospect in the 2021 NFL Draft, has not signed his contract yet. He is one of I think he's the player left that hasn't signed his contract. Trey Lance just signed yesterday. So the Jets, typically what happens is it has something to do with cash flow, don't know or care about that. But the sticking point, I guess, is that the Jets want to defer millions of Zach Wilson's signing bonus money to 2022, which makes it, get this, not a signing bonus. If he defers that long, the precedent and the league precedent is to pay the signing bonus money within 15 to 30 days, like payment periods at a company of signing the contract. That makes it a signing bonus. The New York Jets have not done that. Posing the question, what's going on with the people that worked for the Trump organization? Why don't you have any cash to pay your quarterback? What are we doing? Regardless, they're not my favorite team, so watching them crash and burn is going to be absolutely hysterical for me. All right, let's move to some Olympic news. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to cover Aaron Rodgers anymore, and I'll cover Deshaun Watson when something happens. He showed up for camp so that he didn't get fined. He may or may not be a serial rapist. Who knows? Okay, I want to talk about Olympic tennis. Yesterday at the Olympics, this is not funny. It's just one of those things where you didn't invite the right people to the room, It was so hot in Tokyo and humid yesterday that tennis players started to make note of this. And remember, these guys, we think about them in Australia and France and the U.S. and in England when they play the big tournaments. They go all over the planet, and they play on a circuit together. They know each other really well. This is really just another tournament for them. There's just more athletes in other sports happening. So the International Tennis Federation yesterday announced that they're going to move matches to start at 3 p.m. local time instead of 11 a.m. because a Spanish guy, his name is, scrolling, Paula Badosa, got heat stroke and had to leave. He retired from the match in a wheelchair. And then a Russian dude, this is so Russian. He says, I can finish the match, but I can die. So he wasn't saying like, I'm scared of dying. He's like, I'll finish and I'll die. Die on the court. That's the most Russian thing I've ever heard. Novak Djokovic, the best player maybe of all time. We'll see about that. And certainly the best player alive right now for men and actually for women too, because Serena's getting up there in tennis years. So he said that I don't understand why matches don't start at 3 p.m. or like 9 a.m. or something. They have lights on the courts, which makes this even stupider. They have lights on the courts, and they're playing at 11 a.m. And like, if tennis players who are out in the sun all day are saying, yep, I'm going to die out here, and then one literally almost dies, you should probably pay attention to that. Just a thought. I don't know. I'm just a dude. All right, moving now to the NBA mock draft. The NBA draft is tonight. All NBA drafts are the same. There are three things that are going to happen. Thing number one is that there are one or two guys at the top that are going to be legends. There are one or two guys scattered throughout who are going to be really good, and then a bunch of other players who analysts are going to have to lie about saying that they're going to be good. They're not. For example, Donovan Mitchell, Giannis Antetokounmpo, they're guys that were scattered throughout. They are very good. Giannis had the best playoffs that any single player has ever had. Do not at me. Donovan Mitchell, second rookie of the year, like you can build a franchise around Donovan Mitchell. However, most of the guys are guys you have never heard of and will never hear of. They're just guys that will come off the bench in a couple years in the final and be like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. Where was he drafted? Was he a first rounder? Are we sure? The real coup of the draft, the Detroit Pistons have the first overall pick. They were historically terrible, very much in trust the process mode. They're going to draft Cade Cunningham, who's been the de facto first overall pick from Oklahoma State. The interesting thing from this draft is that there are going to be a couple guys from something called G League Ignite, which means that these guys did not go to college. They went and made a couple $100,000 in the G League, which is the developmental league. They call it the G League because G sounds cooler than D, I guess. I don't know. But it's just the minors. They went straight to the minors instead of going to college, which basketball players traditionally haven't had the option to do. Now they do. They're going to get drafted, so it's going to be worth checking out how they do. All right, Olympic medal count update. Japan is in sole possession of first place of gold medals. They have 15 golds, 4 silvers, 5 bronzes. China has 1 more gold than the U.S. at 14, 1 less bronze than the U.S. at 9, but the U.S. has 8 more silvers, bringing the total medal count for the United States at 37. Australia, 20 total medals, 8 golds. The cheaters from Russia have 26 total medals, and 7 golds. I don't care how mad they get. Let's shout all the countries who have 1 gold in order. Switzerland, Romania, Brazil, Chinese Taipei, Czech Republic, New Zealand, Georgia, Serbia, Austria, Hong Kong, Tunisia, Estonia, Ireland, Uzbekistan, Bermuda, Ecuador, Fiji, Iran, Latvia, Norway, Philippines, Slovakia, Thailand. Good for those guys. Spain, no gold. South Africa, no gold. Belgium, no gold. We'll see how that goes for those guys. All right, let's get to the NFL preview portion of the show. If I had to pick a fan base that I'm not scared of on the internet, but I'm absolutely terrified in person, that fan base are the San Francisco 49ers and the Giants and everything else that happens in the Bay Area. I think it's possible that the 49ers are the greatest organization in sports right now, or that they're the biggest frauds and are just incredibly stupidly lucky. I actually believe that's the spectrum of possibilities with nothing in the middle. I also believe that the 2017 NFL draft for the 49ers is the worst draft that any franchise has ever had, period. They did draft George Kittle, which was one of the stupid picks that the Bears traded for them, which is luck. That's not scouting. That's not hitting a home run. What happened to this? We can get into that one day if you want me to just tell you what happened. But the first thing is that they had the second overall pick. They then fleeced the Bears to move down 1 spot so the Bears could move up to pick Mitch Trubisky, which can't get mad at the Bears. They took a shot at a quarterback. They missed. There were 3 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. 2 are legends. 1 is Mitch Trubisky. They got the scouting wrong. Fine. But that means that San Francisco and genius Kyle Shanahan had the opportunity to scout Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, and then A, didn't step to the podium and select Patrick Mahomes, then B, traded down, because if their thought had been, oh, well, we'll just get whichever one's left, Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson, they didn't do that. C, they drafted like one of the biggest busts in top 5 NFL history. Like literally, you can make the argument that I think Greg Williams, the left tackle for the Rams, Browns, Lions, that guy was maybe the biggest bust of all time. But Solomon Thomas is up there. Just an unbelievably terrible draft. Now, Kyle Shanahan gets a lot of credit for his run schemes, but boy, genius. What he does is he runs the ball behind Mike McGlinchey and Joe Staley and Trent Williams and George Kittle. Unbelievably groundbreaking, I know. And then they get a lot of credit for their defense, which has Nick Bosa, had DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, Fred Warner, and Hall of Famer Richard Sherman. So, again, just geniuses with all of their genius, coaching up players who are either literally walking in the Hall of Fame now or are trending in that direction. Buckner gets traded, Bosa gets hurt, and all of a sudden they're human. Their win total is set at 10.5. That is high for me. I'm leaning in the direction of fraud, but I'm betting in the direction of boy genius. 10.5 wins for the 49ers. They're in the most difficult division in football with the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Seahawks. They are minus 200 to make the playoffs. I'm fading that. I don't think they're making the playoffs. In these divisions that are good, what happens, everybody says, like, well, they could all make the playoffs. Yes, or they could all eat each other and all be around 500 in division play. And at that point, it's what are you going to do in the other divisions? You can see a world now without DeForest Buckner, without Richard Sherman, with a couple years to study. Maybe the Packers eat their lunch this year. Maybe the Vikings do. Maybe the Bears do. Who knows what's going to happen with the 49ers? They play the NFC North this year, as I just mentioned. So with that win total and the making the playoffs, I'm fading the Niners this year. I think they get a lot of credit for their scheming when they have a lot of top 10 picks on their team that are just better than people they play against. Other Niners props, they are plus 15,000 to have the worst regular season record. There are no odds in the world that would make me bet the Niners to have the worst record in the regular season. I'm looking at the Falcons and the Eagles for that bet based on odds. They are plus 1,400 to have the best regular season record. The schedule's too tough. There's no way they're winning 14 games. That would be crazy. Plus 5,000 to be the lowest scoring team in the regular season. Plus 1,400 to be the highest scoring team in the regular season. I think they run the ball too much to be the highest scoring regular season team. They also play against Seattle and LA, so there's just going to be the data are not going to be good for them. So fading the Niners on win total, fading the Niners to make the playoffs. I want to see it happen without all of these dudes that are going to the Hall of Fame. Still have great players. George Kittle, great. Trent Williams is maybe the best left tackle in football. Mike McGlinchey is top 5 right tackle in football. They're a good team, but the defense is, I don't know. I don't think they're nearly as good as the hype they get. Get this. This is the most important thing about the Niners and whether or not they're frauds. Kyle Shanahan's been the head coach for 4 years, and if you've been watching Kyle Shanahan, when people are hurt, there's this vibe of like, oh, he's doing the best he can. Look at these guys that are bad at quarterback. He's making them look good. Yeah, you notice they always lose those games? There's a line from the newsroom on HBO which says, if liberals are so smart, how come they lose so god always? Which is true. If Kyle Shanahan is such a genius and John Lynch is such a genius, how can they lose all these games? He has one winning season as an NFL head coach. One. Nick Bosa was hurt. Yeah. Yep. Tom Brady was hurt for the Patriots, and they won 11 games. The Eagles won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles and without their Hall of Fame left tackle. If you're so good, why do you lose so much? That's the big question. I used to like Trey Lance as a bet. I still like Trey Lance as a bet for a couple things, but when you look back at Kyle Shanahan scouting the 2017 draft, you think your take was to trade with the Bears and then to draft Solomon Thomas instead of drafting Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson? How can we trust you? How much of your genius is really just Mike McGlinchey, Joe Staley, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, DeForest Buckner, Fred Warner, Richard Sherman? Is it the X's and those, or is it the Jimmys and the Joes? And with the Niners, the narrative is that it's the X's and the O's, but we're going to find out pretty quick with the Niners. All right, that's going to do it for Interesting to See for Thursday. I'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Subscribe, like, rate, review, tell your friends, etc. Appreciate you guys. Be back tomorrow.